Welcome in, West Tigers fans, to another episode of the WestsLife Podcast. I am your host, Josh Barnett. We are brought to you by the Holman Barnes Group, which includes West Ashfield Leagues, the best place to watch the game live and loud on Thursday night. We'll preview that game on Wednesday. We take on the Dragons, the Wooden Spoon final, I guess you could call it. But check out the Garden Bistro and walk on before the game and watch the game on the big screen at WestsLife Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and check out the Linktree link on that profile. Actually, I forget to mention this all the time. The Linktree link should be also, if you listen to this episode audio, it's literally in the description. So if you want to find any of the things that we do, including our Patreon, and we do have a new Patreon Benji Marshall member who joined yesterday. So patreon.com /WestsLife, and that is Lisa. So welcome along to Lisa. Lisa, if you're listening, check your DMs. I'll send you a link to our Discord. Come join. It's been blowing up. I've struggled to keep up with our Discord today. I just through work and everything, the guys and girls are just firing off this episode. It might be a long one, fellas. They even got a special guest to help us get through all of the bullshit of being a West Tigers fans. It's kind of hitting its peak, Mr. Basharo. Kind of, I don't know. Are we at the peak of the West Tigers? That kind of suggests that it doesn't get any worse. But are we at the peak of the West Tigers bullshit shitstorm?
G'day, Josh. G'day, Brenden. Thanks for joining us. G'day, Aaron. Have we reached our lowest of lows? I don't know yet, Josh. I really don't know. I think we've had more articles in the last 24 hours than we've had wins over the last two seasons. So just been an absolute shitstorm of West Tigers news. I got a bit of a headache watching 360 tonight and Lee Haigpantelis and his evasive answers, but yeah, look, we'll plough through it and try to get through everything. But yeah, it's not the best time to be a West Tigers supporter, but you just got to try and block it out. And like I keep saying to the listeners the last few weeks, just find something that keeps you happy, because our rugby league club certainly doesn't do that at the moment.
Absolutely. And we've got a special, as I mentioned, special guest on the show. Not for the first time, Brenden. This is your second time on the show. You were here on previously for a what episode was it? Event pod.
The Grievance pod.
Grievance pod. That's the one. And you sent us an email, and everyone's welcome to do this. Podcast at westlife.com. Shoot us for an email and tell us what's happening and suggestions and feedback and all that sort of thing. And Brenden proposed to us. He's put together a list of basically all the fuck ups that management have had since in Pascoe's tenure, and I thought it's a perfect episode. Come along on the show as we discuss all of that fun stuff as well tonight. And Mr. Thompson, how are you going this evening?
Yeah, g'day Josh, g'day Rob, g'day Brenden. I'm all right. It's feeling pretty glum after another disappointing game over the weekend, and then obviously the rest of the round to go through afterwards. But I'm just extremely hyped for the NRLW season kicking off this weekend with our debut game. So I'm very excited for that.
Yep, which is Sunday, isn't it? That's a sad thing, isn't it? It's kind of fading in the background a little bit.
Sunday for that one.
The girls. Sheensy Presser. I'll save the Sheensy Presser for after. Let's go straight into so this whole Sheens Marshall debacle. With Scott Fulton, the recruitment managers. So Lee Haigpantelis, he went on to NRL 360 tonight to pour water on the flames, I guess, to with lack of a better analogy. But look, we'll get straight into it, and then I'll throw it to the boys on what they thought, what Lee said tonight. So here he is talking about Scott Fulton.
You'd think that you would have spoken to him about this.
No, look, I agree with everything you say. However, Scott's role is to go out and recruit the players that Benji and Tim wants. Scott is regarded as perhaps the best recruiter in the game, and he came to us very highly recommended. We did our due diligence. We spoke to a number of interested parties, and he came, as I say, highly recommended. We employed him. His role is to go and recruit the players that Benji and Tim want.
Lee, your chief executive, Justin Pascoe, has been there.
Robert's a big call. He's called him the best recruitment guy out there. But this whole Benji, apparently they've had a separate meeting today. So the whole thing was they're going to go into a meeting today that is Scott Fulton and Benji Marshall. Apparently they're not getting along. They're not agreeing on what players to recruit. They ended up having meetings separately because apparently Benji was on the field and didn't have time to meet with Justin Lee and Scott. But what's the latest you've heard on this whole debacle?
Oh, look, only what we heard on NRL 360 tonight. I mean, you know, I really don't have much good to say about Haigpantelis as normal, but, you know, he called it a storm in the teacup again. He said the relationship between Fulton and Marshall was professional, civil and polite. The fact that they had to be interviewed separately is not a good look. I mean, you think they'd need to be in the room together, all parties together, and just be told to pull their heads in. This is your role, Benji. This is your role, Scott. This, I know some of it overlaps. This is how it's going to work. Do you have a problem with that? Yes or no? And just move on from there. So I don't think the fact that they got interviewed separately, is a good look of unity. As for the best recruiter in the NRL, I'm not over all that stuff, Josh. I don't know who the best recruiter is. According to NRL 360 or Braithen Astor, it's only this year was his first full season in charge of the top grade at Manly for that recruitment. So to say he's the best after one season is probably unrealistic, but, you know, Lee likes to, sort of spin a story, but look, it's just not a good look. And obviously they went through the examples of Josh Schuster, the Fainu brothers, the talk about the halfbacks, whether we get Aidan, Sezer, or whether we get Cogger from Penrith, and they've disagreed on a number of issues there. And look, I just think it comes back to how Fulton was recruited. It was done poorly. It needed to be done up front and the coaches needed to be told what was happening. So everyone was unified, but you don't just get a recruiter, put him in and just off you go sort of thing. You've got to get them in and basically say whose role is what, because at the end of the day, the coach does have to have the final say. But at the same time, Fulton can't do his job if he doesn't know what players Benji wants. So it should never have, I mean, what a poor start. He's only been there 6 or 8 weeks. So it's just not a good way to do things. I don't think Sheens is very happy that his mate McDonald got pushed out, because that was the whole proviso of Sheens coming back originally. When Sheens came back, he said he wanted his mate Warren McDonald back there. So I don't think Sheens is playing very nice anyway, and he's probably trying to white ant Fulton. So look, there's just no harmony there, and it's just not good, not only for us recruiting players, but also for players at our club wanting to stay. And, I guess you'll get onto other stuff later, Josh, but, the fact that the player managers have got so much power and kind of putting a gun to our heads, doesn't really help much as well.
We've got a clip of Buzz talking about that we'll get to in a second, but here's Lee, a little bit more from Lee tonight.
Forward. Why are you still the right people to take it forward?
Well, Brett, no, I perfectly understand the frustration. I share in it. I mean, no one wants to be at the bottom of the table 2 years in a row. As I said, it's embarrassing. But as to the leadership, I serve, as does Justin, at the pleasure of the board. Now, you understand, of course, that the board represents the owners of this organisation, and they decide who sits in the chairman's seat and who doesn't, and they decide who the CEO is. As to Justin, it should also be understood, there's no decisions taken whatsoever by Justin that's not ratified by the board. He doesn't appoint coaches. He doesn't go out and recruit players. His role is the chief of the executive, which involves him in all the operational matters. The buck stops with the board.
Right, a little bit. Lee going into bat for his board and his CEO a bit there. He does say a little bit more about Justin Pascoe later on. I'll play that back to back.
Chief Executive Justin Pascoe has been there a long time. You're the chairman. You look like you're going to win a second wooden spoon this year. How much pressure is he under, Justin Pascoe?
A lot. a lot, Buzz, as we all are, incredible pressure. The last couple of weeks have been the worst of my tenure as a chairman. But this entire club is feeling the pressure, all the way from chairman through the board, through the executive, all the way down to the players. They all feel it. I mean, no one's immune from it. Winning another wooden spoon, if you can call it winning, is something that we're all embarrassed about. Well, we're not there yet. I mean, we haven't given up on this year. But it's something that we're not proud of, and we're embarrassed by it.
Can you guarantee Justin's job beyond this year? Or
No.
you can't guarantee his job?
No. Buzz, you will never hear me use the words guarantee. There are legal implications of guaranteeing someone's employment, but as we stand here today, there is no reason to think that Justin Pascoe will not be the CEO in 2024.
Big, Rob, just quickly, that's the first we've ever heard of a possibility that Justin Pascoe might not have a job in the near future.
Josh, I don't know how much more you've got of this to play, but later on he says, Sheens, what were his words? I'm trying to think. So he was asked, will Sheens be the coach next year?
Yeah, I've got that.
And his reply was, that's what his contract says. Now, he's also just said in that clip that you've played, he doesn't give guarantees because there are legal ramifications from that. 2 or 3 weeks ago on SEN radio, when asked about Sheens, he said, you can be certain of 3 things in life: death, taxes, and Tim Sheens will be the West Tigers coach next year. So that's an awful shift in how he's conveying his message from a few weeks ago on radio to suddenly now he's contracted next year and I don't give guarantees. So again, I mean, what he said on radio a few weeks ago to me is a guarantee. Now it doesn't seem like a guarantee. So I would call that a porky, for want of a better term.
Brenden, it's probably the right time to show us your list, buddy. So you've made up a list of all the things. So basically a good reason why Justin Pascoe might not have a job next year. What have you got for us?
Yeah, g'day everyone. G'day boys. So look, I actually did a bit of research on top of this just to make sure that everything was sort of accountable and accurate. So I'll just read it off. So I got it off someone else, pretty much. So it's not. So I've said to Josh privately that it's not exactly all my information. I got it off someone else, but I did do some research and basically verify like articles and stuff like that. So I just want to run through just like a few of them of each year ever since Pascoe's come in. So I'll just be ready and do that. If we can do it now. So
yeah, go.
So 2015, September 2015, Pascoe was appointed. And basically between 15 to 17, his first big decision was to tick off coach Jason Taylor wanting to axe Robbie Farah. And I think that's basically where it starts to fall to shit for us in the club.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So from there onwards, so I've just got it in just bullet points. So I might send you the list, Josh, later for future use or whatever. So
sure.
2017 in April. So we sign off Jason Taylor after being sacked after the sacking of Farah, moving to Souths. Ivan Cleary is then put in to head coach. Ivan Cleary tells off-contract stars to get on the bus, and we know how long that went for, pretty much. And pretty much in May, we lost Tedesco, we lost Moses, and we then decided it's a good idea to sign Packer, Josh Reynolds, Ben Madalino on big money contracts.
Chris McQueen.
And Chris McQueen. Yep, Chris McQueen. That's another one.
We also lost backpack too. Sorry, Brenden.
Yeah,
we also lost Aaron along with Moses and Tedesco.
Yeah, exactly right. So even be free to join in whenever as well. Get your input.
So how much? Just to stop you there, Brenden. How much? And we've got a clip of Aaron Woods basically saying that the three of them left. We're going to play that soon, about the three of them leaving because of management, basically. But How much, Rob, do you think that's because of Ivan Cleary?
That the three guys left because of Ivan Cleary?
Yeah, well, he was in charge at the time. The whole "Are you on the bus or are you off it?" was kind of from him. How much do you think of that stuff up's on Ivan?
Not, I don't think much of it is on Ivan at all. I think that was down to management, as we'll hear now. I think it was the fact that we didn't know which direction the club was going in, because basically they had a choice of backing Robbie Farah or Jason Taylor. They backed Jason Taylor, and then 6 months later, Taylor's sacked. And they're like, what the hell is going on? Further to that, which Woods doesn't mention in his interview, good mate of mine, Joe Weeby, who was called the player whisperer. He was helping the Tigers pre-season and at the start of the season. And after round one, when the Tigers beat Souths comfortably, Joe Weeby was shown the door, and he was working with those three players individually, and that didn't sit well with them as well. So they just realised this club is just, they're not true to their word. They keep chopping and changing what they're doing. They've embarrassed us. And they just thought, what, this club's not going anywhere, so we're out of here. And that's basically what led to those three blokes leaving. It had nothing to do, in my opinion, with Cleary, because like those Woods and Tedesco had a deadline, okay, to agree to sign with the club. And funny enough, that was the day I was introducing Adrian Tripadina to Justin Pascoe, and he came and met me at my place. He actually said, I want to get away from the media. So look, that just wasn't going to happen. The boys were already made their mind up that they were going to leave. Luke Brooks was the only one that stayed. The reason Luke Brooks stayed wasn't over loyalty. No other club wanted him. So that was the whole reason we kept Luke Brooks. But I don't believe, back to your question, I don't believe that had anything to do with Ivan Cleary whatsoever.
Right, want to keep going, Brenden?
So in that season in 2017, we went on to finish 14th with 7 wins, 17 losses. So I'm also taking account each year and how well we did performance-wise as well. So into 2018, we had signed Moses Mbai on a really big 4-year deal from Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Pascoe gets blindsided by Ivan Cleary, who had a link to Penrith Panthers on a $5 million deal, and he's still there now. It emerges that Cleary had talks for over a month, basically backstabbing Pascoe, which I can't really sort of blame him for that. But the fact that the guy you work next to, you don't even try and get him interested to help and reform the club, goes to show that Pascoe is still quite incompetent with his job and keeping retention and keeping staff there. So in that year, in 2018, we finished 9th on the ladder with 12 wins and 12 losses. So a slight improvement from the year before. Going into pretty much into pre-season, because we never make finals. Pretty much we signed Ryan Madison on a 3-year contract, which was going to end at 2021. And pretty much Pascoe then also ticked off Luke Brooks signing a 4-year contract because no one else wanted him, like Rob said. And now I've noted this is the biggest turning point, I reckon, for the club at this point. And Pascoe was in charge. In December 2018, Pascoe is deregistered by the NRL for 6 months for failing to disclose $640,000 year arrangement for Robbie Farah as a club ambassador. Now, because of that, we were penalised for $750,000 off the cap for the next 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And so, but after that, right, in June 2019, he's then reinstated back into CEO. So if you're caught not disclosing figures, how can you keep your job as a CEO? That's what I never understood, because if they had the balls back then, all this bullshit and rubbish could have stopped in the middle of 2019, and we probably wouldn't be discussing how like the way this club is now.
Say that again, Rob.
I was just saying the club had their chance to get rid of Pascoe there and then. I mean, I think some of those fines and length of suspension for Pascoe was reduced, later on. But the
Right.
salary cap affected for a couple of years. And that was a perfect opportunity to get rid of a guy that was an absolute dud. And we didn't do it. And that goes back on the board as well. So, I don't think Lee was there at the time. It might have been under Marina Go's tenure, but
correct. Yeah, it was just before Lee signed on.
She was there.
Awful decision.
Started 2019 season because she was literally the first episode of this podcast. She was my interview, and she said on the show that she's resigning. So
yeah.
I mean, how different could it have been if we just had the balls then and got new management and possibly a new board from that point onwards? Like, huge difference. I think that's really the big turning point right there, was to get rid of him there and there.
Yeah.
So going onwards, in 2019 we signed Josh Reynolds till the end of 2021 on $750,000 a year. Aidan Hardikin is then appointed in July for general manager of football, and in October 2019, Ryan Madison, with 2 years left on his contract, blows up with the club and signs with Parramatta, and he's been for Parramatta since. So we'll roll into 2020.
Sorry, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Josh Reynolds was signed in 2017 to join us in 2018, not 2019. That's all right,
Sorry,
but that just in case someone jacks up on the listening and sends a message. He was basically, Josh Reynolds and Chris McQueen were knee-jerk signings that we made within a month of losing Woods and Tedesco, to say, look at us, we've got these representative players, when in fact they were ex-representative players that hadn't played for New South Wales or Queensland for a couple of years. So they were, signings made just to save face. And that was in the middle of 2017. We actually didn't have a coach at the time when we made the signings. I think we had an interim coach.
Yeah, that's it.
It was Webster, wasn't it?
I think it was Webster, actually.
Which is funny because Webster was only the coach for, I think, 2 or 3 games before Ivan was signed.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sorry.
Now he's killing the Warriors. So so going to 2020 into the COVID years, we rolled the dice with Joey Leilua, and well, look how that turned out. So then in June 2020, Maguire decides to cut Benji having another year with the Tigers. So I think after that he went to Souths, and pretty much from there in August 2020 we finished 11th with 7 wins and 13 losses. So a win and loss ratio starts to get worse the further it goes down. Obviously that's if you accumulate obviously the playing roster and all other factors in there, it all amounts together pretty much.
Yeah.
So then at the end of 2020 we signed Jimmy Roberts, and he wasn't great. So, and which rolls into 2021. So Tigers were booed off in the round 5 game against North Queensland in commemorating the legend of Tommy Raudonikis. I will never forget that, because that was disgraceful. And look, I think on the day emotions were high. I think it was kind of warranted, but I think as well as that, they didn't really do much.
Person, if you look at the photo of that, there's a certain person in the crowd that you might recognise the photo on that one.
Right. So in May 2021, we had 2 wins and 6 losses out of the first 8 games, and the pressure was on Maguire to perform. The club appoints Sheens as director of football in June 2021, and then after that, we had the great documentary,
Tiger Town.
So documenting all of this, and I will make note as well. So in one of the games there, we got thumped by Melbourne, if you remember, 66-16.
Yep.
And that was really, really bad. And then in that game, in that season, we then lose 38-0 by the Wooden Spooners to Canterbury. And
That was last game of the year. Yeah,
last game of the year. And as a stat, we had 8 wins, 16 losses. We conceded 714 points, the worst average points lead since 2001 for the club. So then going into that, Pascoe decides, let's do an internal season review. And he does that alongside with Sheens and Lee. And I think it was also Danny Stapleton and the head of football, Adam Hardigan, at the time. And they find nothing's wrong. So again, they've got no accountability in terms of the way they want to get, in terms of the way they want to direct the club. So it keeps them mounting. Maguire survives the axe, and we move into 2022 now. So we start 0 from 5, and the blowtorch is then applied to Maguire. So then we sack another coach, and before that, Pascoe went to Northern Territory for a holiday, and there was a bit of a conspiracy that he was sort of faking his celebrations whilst over in the Northern Territory watching.
100%. He fed that to what's the journalist we had on the show?
Michael Shamus.
100%. He fed that to him.
The weekend.
I mean, who does that?
A bloody psychopath. That's who.
Literally.
Yeah,
it's fucking weird, man. It's weird. Like, and if you remember watching the footage, it was so like, it was sort of like, okay, now go, and it's like, oh, he's just putting his hands up, like he's giving a shit. Like, yeah, it's just one thing after another. So, so from that point onwards, we put Noddy in charge as the interim, and Noddy's record is probably one of the worst records in the NRL, with 1 win and 11 losses. So, and from July 2022 onwards, Sheens, Marshall, and Farah has been appointed to the Tigers coaching team for 23. And if you remember, in August 2022, the Roosters, which has now been beaten from the Cowboys, handed us 72-6 loss, and we got given the wooden spoon. So, gradually over time, all these decisions of players and coaches being sacked, it all comes from the top pretty much. And so I think, without going into 2023 at the moment, what do you guys think so far of the review and what you've thought so far?
Yeah, Brenden, thanks for doing that comprehensive list. It's actually a couple of things. Wouldn't say I forgot, but just there's been so many that you that goes to the back of the list, in the back of the head. Aaron, like, just how it's just insane that someone can continue to be in a position after just fuck up after fuck up, year after year. It's crazy.
The word I'd use to describe it at the moment is diabolical. It is that bad. I will say one thing, like, there were a few good signings in there, like the signing of Ryan Madison at the time was a brilliant signing.
I thought that was.
The only issue with that was the situation regarding his exit and how that came about and how that was all handled, where I think he should have been made to stay at the club. And if he wanted to sulk because he didn't want to come to training after we had been knocked out of finals contention, that he should be made to just sit in reserve grade. But then, like, the club, they've had a habit of, bending over and taking it when it comes to giving players who want to leave the club what they want. And, like, obviously we get nothing in return. It's happened time after time after time, letting players go, not getting anything in return, and just basically being dumped on by all the other clubs because they're getting what they want from us. And we're basically not. And for the most part, we just haven't demanded anything from them. And to me, that's one of the other frustrating parts of this whole situation, this whole process. But yeah, overall, to sum it up, I'd just say it's diabolical.
Right, I'll go back to another clip on NRL 360.
Buzz, I
It's a
understand the
tough
challenges.
sell,
No, look, I understand that. We're not immune. I mean, we have ticked a lot of boxes. Our roster is much stronger than what it was last year. Unfortunately, the results haven't borne that out. But we know there are challenges, particularly around the halves. We're losing Luke. Adam Dewey's been out injured for quite some time and will be all through half of next year at least. So there are challenges presented, but there is a lot of upside. We've significantly improved this roster. Bateman, Ice, Clemmer, Appy, for example. Finding Buller at the back has been a revelation. So there's a lot of upside. And I think player managers, from my understanding and having discussions with them, are showing a lot of faith in what we're doing.
So the player managers aren't complaining and the players aren't worried about the way that the West Tigers are heading at the moment?
Well, as to the players, I'm sure they are. I don't converse or discuss these things with the players. There's a lot of layers between me and the players, as there should be. There's an executive, of course, in the football department and the coaches. I don't intervene in that. I don't step on their toes whatsoever so far as the players are concerned. Player managers have expressed a view. We've taken that on board. As a club, it would be ridiculous of us not to consider other stakeholders. And don't forget that player managers have the product. They control the supply chain. So you've got to keep them on side.
Lee,
what do you make of that, Rob? Is there a little bit of a sucking up, trying to make it up to these player managers? He said that it's all good, but the way he kind of finishes that with giving player managers a bit of a compliment there, seems like he's trying to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he says it before or just after that, Josh, but he goes, player managers control the product. They control the supply and demand. Look, it is difficult, like I say, but, some managers have 70, 80 players on their roster, so it's just a bit of a juggling act. I just can't get past everything. Like, you talk about the halfback situation. That's got to fall on the coaches, but then you got to say who appointed the coaches. Like with all that stuff that Brendan's run through now, with my conversation with Lee Haigpantelis, his big knock on Madge was we'd gone backwards. We'd gone 9th, 11th, 13th, and that, we just can't keep it going backwards. It has to change. But since Sheens has been in charge of the decisions, we've gone 16th and we're currently sitting 17th. So I think, you can't be a hypocrite. It can't be, well, it's not good for Madge and it's not good for Tim and Benji. So I just think this whole halfback thing is on Sheens and Benji because, as we've said, we lost Madden, we lost Hastings, and we've offered Brooks basically half the money that we offered Mitch Moses. And they're right. There is a scarce amount of halfbacks out that you can buy now, but we should never have been in this position if the coaches had identified who was right to be our halfbacks. And the problem is, though, who appointed those coaches? Okay, so it all falls back to the board and how they got it wrong. And look at who our halves were on the weekend. We had Brandon Wakeham, who we signed in January, and Will Smith, who was on a train and trial. So they haven't even had a full pre-season with us. And I know, and the first thing West Tigers fans do is bag the halfback. I still think Wakeham was okay the other night. I'm going to sound like a defender of him, but I am. I mean, he's provides a try assist to Buller. He gets involved in the try twice for the Coruscant kick. His defence has been pretty good. His kicking has been okay, given the fact that he's like literally on a minimum contract. I think he's overachieved. But, when we blame our results, you've got to blame it on the players and the coaches. But again, who employed those guys? It goes back to the top. And the biggest problem I've got is they say they take accountability, but they actually don't, guys. You can't take accountability without the consequences of accountability. You've got to step down, or you've got to move on, or you've got to be fined, or you've got to be sacked, or you've got to be suspended. You can't just say, yep, that's on me, and go back to work 5 seconds later. It doesn't work like that. And that's a problem with our club. They're trying their best. We know all that. But there's no accountability. Never has been. Never will be. And when's it going to end? That's why I say I don't know if we've reached our lowest point yet, Josh.
Here's Lee, basically a message out to the fans when he finished his interview tonight.
They're fed up with the lack of success there for a long period of time. How do you guarantee change in the future?
Well, I think we've just got to work harder. And work smarter, and that's what we're endeavouring to do. Everyone in this club is absolutely committed, Braith, to getting us out of this hole and moving in the right direction. We know there are challenges, and particularly around recruitment in our roster. We have the core making of a very, very competitive team. We just need to add a few players in key positions. I think we all recognise that. We've been competitive in many games this year, and I think we've fallen short because... of those key positions and the deficiencies there. But I'm sure we can turn it around. So just, as I say, it might sound hollow, but just stick strong. This club is absolutely, everyone is working very hard to turning it around for the rest of this year and for 2024.
Well, thanks, Lee, for joining us.
So he's not gotten rid of keep the faith. He's saying stay strong now. But
Stick strong.
Or stick strong, rather.
Yeah.
How's as someone that has spent so much time and money and effort in his club, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, I'm pretty deflated by the whole mess. Like, I don't want to flex or anything like that, but this is my 8th season as a member. Obviously, that's not quite as many as some people out there, but I did spend a lot of money over the first 7 and a bit years on traveling from Orange to Sydney for
petrol alone, man. It's just insane.
Yeah. And it's hard to keep the faith. It's hard to stay strong when it's just negativity after negativity after negativity, whether it be in the media, whether it be from the supporters, whether it be a petition, whether it be the countless news articles about us over an off season or a pre-season or during a season, when we're playing garbage like we have been for, well, basically the last 2.5 seasons, where I think we've won something like bloody 7 games in like 30 plus rounds or something, which is absolutely diabolical. And I just don't know how fans like myself, like how other members like myself can find it in them to continue to support a club that's constantly doing this to their fans. And honestly, at the moment, I feel really, really bad for the girls' team. They're just coming into the comp. They're just getting started. They're ready to basically debut their team this coming weekend. And there's a massive shit show going around them at the club. And their membership numbers could drop or could suffer in the future just because of how diabolical this mess at the club is.
For sure. For sure would have affected it. 100%.
Oh, absolutely. Like, in a heartbeat, as soon as I heard there were women's memberships, I knew I was signing up because I wanted to sign up to support the girls for their first season. But so many other people, I can't speak for everyone, but I imagine so many other people would have been like, no, I'm not giving this club another dollar of my money. And like, that's no fault of the girls. It's no fault of the guys, even when it comes to the guys on field. The one thing there has been this year is there has been, well, in pretty much every game except for 2 of them, we've been competitive. And I know it's not brilliant. I know it's not what we want. I know we want to win. Every club wants to win premierships, yada, yada, yada. But there's been a lot of effort this year compared to what there were in some games last year. I'll go back to the end of 2021 where we had that game against the Dogs up in Redcliffe where there was no effort. Sini made mistake after mistake after mistake. We had so many players dropping ball that they would never have dropped to lose that game 38-0. It was just an absolute disaster. There was no effort there. But in pretty much every game this year, I'd say except for the Broncos game and the Cowboys game up there, there's been effort. The team have been committed. They've been determined. That culture around the team, I feel, is starting to change. But the issue is the entirety of the issues surrounding the club won't change until there's change at the top.
100%. Well said, Az. Here's a little bit of buzz talking about player managers from the same episode of NRL 360.
Explain to our viewers the role Scott Fulton has. There are 3 managers out there, and I'll name them: Sam Ayub, Mario Tartak, and Daniel O'Loughlin, who have a lot of really good football players. They're big-time managers. They are not comfortable sending players to the West Tigers in the condition they're in right now, and they want to guarantee that Scott Fulton is going to be there to rebuild that club before they have confidence that they are going to move forward.
Rob, you know Mario, one of the names mentioned there. Do you think there's much legitimacy to what Buzz is saying there?
Look, Mario's expressed that to me, but at the same time, it didn't stop Mario wanting Schuster to go there for crazy money, and it got rejected.
Mm.
So I just think it's a little bit of a threat from these player managers. It also shows that, Justin and Lee are really, taking a lot of heat from the player managers, and they're actually listening to the player managers as well. I don't think this Holbrook rumor has come from, our club. I think that's come from the player managers as well. So look, they've got a lot of power at the moment, and this is, like the problem that all NRL clubs face, not just us, but the fact that we're so low on the ladder, it makes it really hard for us. Like, in a perfect world, if we had a draft where, the lowest team gets the first pick and stuff like that, we wouldn't have done so much to our head. But the fact is, we don't have a draft, and sometimes you gotta dance with the devil. I don't know. I really don't know what the right thing to do in terms of, going with what these player managers says. And I don't know if you've got this clip for later, Josh, but Anasta really, who hates the Tigers, he was really on point tonight, sticking to the buzz about opinions and stuff like that, because clearly Schuster's not worth the money, he was being touted for. And look, I didn't watch this under-19 games that everyone's talking about, but how do we know the Fainus are that good? And if they're that good, who do they play against? Other 18 and 17-year-olds or whatever? So, it's just opinions, and it's people pumping up their own players' tires and what have you. Maybe they turn out to be great players. I don't know enough about them to say that. But the point is, there's just a lot of pressure on there. But, our problem right now in terms of player roster, well, obviously we need some outside backs. That goes without saying. But we need halves, and we should never have been in that position, from what I said to you guys earlier tonight. So there's just been a lot of mismanagement all around, and it needs to change, guys. And the thing with these player managers is they're going to start, pulling the, Talon De Silvas and the Josh Follettis and all these other guys out of there. And then, if our club continues to be a basket case, then in a couple of years from now, we might end up losing a Jareem Buller or something like that. I mean, he's seen Tedesco was, one of our best players, and went to the Roosters and won back-to-back premierships immediately in 2019 or whatever it was, thereabouts. He had a couple of premierships in a row around that time. I mean, why would he want to stay with a club that's continually to go poorly when he's putting his body on the line every week the way he does, and he's only had half a season? The kid's going to be a superstar. He's going to be the Dally M Rookie of the Year. And, he's in a club now that just has poor leadership from top to bottom. So just got to get our act together, man. I don't know. Aaron mentioned the petition, which only has something like 1,200 signatures. Really well-meaning thing. Got no issue with the sentiment and what's in the petition itself. Fact is, it just doesn't do anything. It's not, the club's not going to, spread their legs and just succumb to anything like that. And even if they were to get a review, they'd hire their own people. We somehow need to get the NRL involved, or we need to take legal action. But at the end of the day, it's 90% owned by a private company. So it doesn't matter how many signatures you get, it's not going to work. But the good thing is, at least it shows the club how disgruntled 1,200 or so people are. But, we don't have voting rights. There's just so much wrong with our governance and our constitution. And I just don't know how it's ever going to change, guys. It's just really disheartening. And I think we're all pretty disillusioned by it. I'm getting emails and texts and what have you every freaking day. And I'm happy to deal with those, but it's just sad seeing all the frustration. It's just, it gets me down sometimes too. But, that's just the state of the nation at the moment as a West Tigers fan. And I just don't think these leaders really see it. As much as Lee says, we're all hurting, we're embarrassed, etc., etc. There's just a fuck up every month. And as Pascoe always says, we don't apologize for any of the decisions we've made. And that's the problem. They do not accept accountability. And we're just going to be stuck with this. And as I said to a friend who rang me earlier tonight, wouldn't matter if Craig Bellamy was our coach, guys. He cannot succeed with this management. Unless you've got the structures in place, or unless Craig Bellamy was running it all on his own, he's just not going to be successful at our club. So I don't care who the coach is. It's just a recipe for disaster right now. And we need that whole board to be outed, and the CEO, they all have to go.
Kind of moves into, so I thought it was interesting, the Triple M footy podcast. I forget what it's called exactly, but let me just look it up just to confirm it. I'll the Monday scrum that dropped on the podcast this afternoon. Woodsy talking about he basically drops why he left the club in the first place. So I'll let Woodsy explain that.
Did you, as a player, could you feel? And I know this is a weird question, but could you feel that above and management, it just felt disjointed?
Why do you think I left?
It was like one.
A lot of people think
one
we left,
mob saying one thing, another.
Yeah, a
mob
lot of people think we left because of money, which it wasn't. It was all the dramas behind the scenes. There were so many things happening, so many things promised. A promise at that club didn't mean much. We were trying to help the club out. We were all taking pay cuts to stay. And then they put deadlines on players. Look at Brooksy.
How old were you at this stage?
I was 24, 25.
So you don't want to be taking pay cuts when you're 24, 25.
We were going to. Yeah, we were going to.
It was you, Mitch, and Teddy, right?
Yeah.
At the time.
And Luke.
And Luke was the other one,
Yeah.
Were you all going to stay at one stage?
100%. I was basically about to re-sign before the round one. And then got a few whispers about a few things that was going to happen. I'm not going to go into that because they'll say that for another day because we could talk about this for a long time.
Episode,
but we got a few whispers about something was going to happen behind the scenes. So we just held off for a couple of weeks and it happened 3 weeks later. And then we just got no genuine support from, behind the scenes. And then they put a deadline on you, all these promises that you were given, not one of them happened.
Is this down to
Rob, how much do you take from this statement from Woodsy? He's kind of stayed silent. I haven't really ever heard him say anything this abrupt about it. Is he a little bit salty at the club, or do you think he's genuinely was fucked over by the club in him, Tedesco and Moses?
Look, it's hard to say, but I think they were screwed over. Having been in regular contact with Pascoe, at that time and a couple of years prior when he first came on board, the one thing I always rave on about with Pascoe is he said, these boys aren't going anywhere. They love each other and they love the club. And I feel that was Pascoe letting his guard down because, as I've mentioned a number of times over the last couple of years, his first signing of that year was Moses Suley instead of signing, James Tedesco. And I just think he just being the CEO that he is and being so blasé and rather casual and nothing sort of phases him. He's not too up or not too down. He just thought, that can wait. That can be on the back burner. They're not going anywhere. And we lost at the time our greatest asset, who we could have built our club around. I mean, we did build a lot around him and we actually had quite a good back line back in those days too. And look, Aaron Woods, didn't go on to any great heights, but at the time he was an international front rower. So I just think when I'm sure Luke Brooks would have left as well if someone had wanted to take him. So I think they just all realised this is just falling apart. Let's all go our separate ways. This place is never going to improve, and that's why they left. But those rumblings were, like Brenden said earlier, I think from the time Robbie Farah got, white-handed, that was hemorrhaging of the club. I mean, you think about the message that sent. If you can have a kid that's been in your junior system the whole time, grown up, captained the club, won a premiership, represented New South Wales, Australia, Lebanon, and then just get told, see you later. I mean, then no one is safe for the club. No one's safe for the club. It sets a low bar in terms of loyalty. Not that there's that much loyalty these days. Everyone calls it a business, but it just says that, if that can happen to Farah, it can happen to anyone. And it also sets the tone as, if you're trying to impress a 16 or a 17-year-old to, for example, let's take Jareen Buller, okay? If we say to Jareen Buller, stay with us for, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, look what we can do for you. And he looks at our history and says, well, look what you did to Marshall years ago. Look what you did to Farah, two of your greatest legends. And why can't you do it to me? You've set a precedent there that, no one is immune to that sort of poor behavior. And it doesn't matter whether we've won a comp for you or not, doesn't matter, especially Farah. Farah, I mean, Marshall had his moments where, he was Benji the Great, but he was also Benji the dinner suit, where to me, Robbie Farah just put his body on the line every game and bled that club. And even after they shat on him, he couldn't wait to go back to the club, finish his career there. And even now trying his best to help in terms of the coaching side of it. So he genuinely loves the club, even after he got fucked over the way he did. And I just think when you set that precedent in how you treat people, it just rubs off. And I just see no warmth or no compassion with Lee Haigpantelis and Justin Pascoe as the main representatives. I know all the other board are accountable, but Lee said, everything falls back on the board. Well, he's part of the board, but he's also the major sponsor, and that's a massive conflict of interest. So why the board going to get rid of someone that's bringing in the most amount of money? There's just so many things wrong with his club, Josh, that, you don't know where to begin, but it's just all wrong. And as a lot of our, fellow fans on social media say, obviously jokingly, like, blow the place up and start again, because that's kind of what it needs. But it just never seems like, we don't stick to a plan. And I think that was one of the things on the petition. Like, whatever we, try to go one way, we just changed tack. Like, we went down the path of, Sheens and McDonald, and a year later we've now gone to Fulton, and, and if that doesn't work, we'll go to someone else, and we might have a different coach next year. Or there's just no solidarity within the club. There's no concrete foundation where you say, right, this is our platform and this is what we're going to build off, because there's serious talks now that Sheens won't be coach next year. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but I feel sorry for the players. I really do. And I know some of them aren't worth being in first grade, but there's a lot who are, and how they front up every week and put their bodies on the line. And yeah, I don't know. It's just quite sad, Josh. It's actually, we're not even, in terms of a club, we're not even a junior club. Like, we are just so shit. Like, we have a centre of excellence. The way our board performs, we would be lucky to have a canteen. That's the sort of thing we deserve. We deserve a canteen, a tuck shop. We don't deserve a club and a centre of excellence where we are so shit, and it just filters down right through the club that I don't think anyone can succeed there.
I just saw a few of the guys in our Discord dropping clips of Lee's done an interview with Michael Chammas, and Chammas has asked Lee, Tigers fans are furious with the club. They're furious with you. They're furious with Justin. Is there any chance you resign as chair of the West Tigers? Lee said, not at all. I serve at the pleasure of the board. As long as I retain the confidence of the board, I will remain in this role. The same could be said for Justin. He fulfills the expectation of his role as the CEO.
But let's be real there, guys. He's the chairman of the board. Justin's not on the board. And most of those people on the board are just bums. They just do whatever they want. They're just yes men and yes women. They're like, I serve at the pleasure of the board. It reminds me, like, I watch Blue Bloods. It reminds me of Tom Selleck when he says, I serve at the pleasure of the governor. Like, what a crock of shit. This guy's just a spin doctor. All he does is gives us false hope, and he can't deliver. He's not capable of delivering success. And the saddest thing I can say, I actually think we're going to beat St. George this week. I really do. But the best thing that could happen for this club is to actually lose to St. George. Now, how disloyal is that from me as a fan, that I think we're better off losing and having this wooden spoon entrenched right now instead of this false hope, we might get 16th or we might jump Canterbury into 15th. And they say, look at that, we improved one spot from last year. I don't want management to have any hope of survival. I want them nailed to the cross, okay? They've had their chance. They fuck up at every opportunity, and then they change tack, and then they'll fuck up again. And, there's only so many times you can buy their excuses. And I don't think anyone believes a word that Lee Haigpantelis says anymore. And it's just a pity Justin Pascoe didn't front up and do that interview. He's been in absolute hiding the last month.
Brenden, anything? We'll let you go after this, because we're an hour in. We haven't even talked about our loss to the Newcastle Knights yet. But anything to add before and thank you for putting that all together for us.
Yeah, it's all good. I think I'll just summarise just with this year. I think just to put the nail in the coffin to really solidify why we just need to have change. If I can do that just really quickly.
Go for it.
So the beginning of the year, we had the incident with Pascoe in the tracksuit. So once again, what image and what characteristics is he displaying? Just being casual, not really giving a fuck. It shows like the way you put yourself out into the public is the way you are perceived in your house of work, so to speak. So I really feel like a lot of his mannerisms, like Pascoe's mannerisms and a lot of his traits, really filters down into the club. And we also had the issue with him on his phone during the halftime sheds as well. Like what the fuck are you doing? Like,
was in Brisbane.
And Brisbane, yeah. And it's just like, you know,
and kicking the footy on the
it's really
field.
Unprofessional.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care. He can say he cares all he wants. He doesn't care. This is just a job. He does not care.
Yeah. I was going to say, on top of that, we also had the jersey issue, and you know, and so forth. And we know how the rest of it. Yeah, we also had all of those issues going down this year as well. So it's just one thing. It's one thing after another, especially this year. There's a lot more that's happened in the last couple of years from him compared to where he started, and I feel like it's just a never-ending avalanche, and I think it's just all snowballs, and at the end of the day, and you know, there's no stopping it. It's like an endless pit. Like, when is it going to stop? Like Rob has said today, like I don't think we've reached the peak. I don't think there is no peak. I think it just keeps going and going and going till something stops it. And
I forgot about the jersey thing, Brenden. I totally forgot about that. And you just reminded me now when you mentioned the jersey fiasco. What about the mural fiasco? Like, didn't even get, you know, when Benji properly and stuff like that. And if you actually read that, like, it's not even put in some chronological order. It's just a whole mishmash of words put together. Like, that's just typical of our club, and it's just not acceptable. And I know they didn't write it themselves, but no one proof checked anything. There's just no systems in place, no matter what they're doing at the club, that, you know, seems to work. And players and coaches that go to other clubs seem to succeed. And we hardly get any players that come here and play better than what they did at their previous club. So there's got to be something wrong with our setup internally.
Brenden, the thing that shits me as well is just how, like, there'll be so many people who are fans of other clubs who, and I think we've talked about this before, who know who Justin Pascoe is as the CEO of the Tigers. Like, I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show because I was talking about it with a mate the other day. When you open your membership pack, it came in a box this year. You open it up, and on the inside the lid, it's a message with a signature from Justin Pascoe. Why the fuck would anyone care about getting a message from the CEO? You have Benji Marshall back at the club. Why is that? They're obviously photocopied signatures. Why couldn't you get a ghostwritten message from Benji Marshall and a signature from Benji? But we've got Justin Pascoe, like, and you mentioned Tiger Town and sitting there in the t-shirt, and he makes it all about him. I genuinely think the other thing too, remember we heard a rumor, Rob, that he was possibly going to get the sack, and it ended up being the Mole reported the same thing. He went on the West Tigers Instagram, used a whole post to make it about, it's like, I'm not being fired. The rumors like are untrue, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's, and like, how did he, and you look at the comments and it's like, oh, how did he think that was going to go? He's an egotistical maniac. Like, honestly,
even Lee is too, Josh. Even Lee is like, you know, look, it's not like I'm watching it. Look, 360's done a bit of a loop on my TV now. And like, as I said on Twitter, like, the outfit that Lee's wearing is like what Joe Pesci wore in one of those freaking movies. I've just gone, but my cousin Vinny,
Home Alone.
My cousin Vinny, when he falls in the mud and he has to go buy a suit from that old shop, and what does he need to wear a hat for internally? Like, it's just like Brenden said, it's just about look. It's just look at me, look what I'm wearing. It's not, you know, if he wore something normal, we wouldn't be commenting about his clothing. But that suit looks like it's out of the 1950s, and you know, he's going to the ball, and you know, the hat looks like from the old Homicide Detective show. Like, it's ridiculous. He just looks ridiculous. Pascoe looks ridiculous, and these guys are the two figureheads of our club. And you know, and the thing is, you know, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but when you open the book, it's pretty empty anyway. Like, they don't get anything right. So the cover is a representation of what they're like. they're just fucking hopeless at their job, guys. And we just have to wear it, and we're meant to stick strong. And I'm thinking the best thing for us as a club is to get fucking smashed by St George this week. And I feel like I won't say the what word, but that's how I feel right now, thinking that. Deep down, I'm thinking I really need my team to lose this week. That is the lowest thing any supporter could say, but I actually think it's the best thing for the club. So where does that put me? You know what I mean? So I don't know, guys. I'm just over it. I'm absolutely over it.
Yeah, we'll try to move on. We spent a whole hour on this, but I think it was definitely needed to get off our chests, and we appreciate you, Brenden, for coming on the show again. Like I said, anyone's got something I want to submit to the show, an idea or anything, we're an open book here. We like to be the podcast that's the voice of the West Tigers fan base. So podcast at westlife.com, just like Brenden did today. So Brenden, thanks heaps, man. Try to enjoy the game Thursday night. I want the Tigers to win, despite what Rob just said. But stick strong, keep the faith.
That's it. The great words from the great man. Not.
Thanks, Brenden.
All right.
Thanks,
see ya.
See you, mate. So we haven't even talked about Aidan Sezer yet. Like there's so much, man. It's a long show. So the Aidan Sezer signing, boys. So I've put a poll out there. I was going to do the results of the poll tonight, but there's just so much shit that's happened. We can add it to Wednesday's show, and we might do the Patreon questions on Wednesday's show as well, even though a lot of them are going to be Pascoe and Lee based. So, but yeah, if you head to the link in this episode, the Linktree link on our Twitter, on our Instagram, there is a link to the Aidan Sezer poll, and you can vote whether you think it's a good thing. I thought a little bit of an idea I had. I thought, because I saw a lot of some people, and I'll ask the boys in a second what they think of this signing, which apparently is going to happen via a medical. Just thought it'd be interesting to see how many people like this and how many people dislike it. And just like our 10-1 player poll, you can put in a little rant, and I'll read the best ones on the show on Wednesday. But knowing my luck, it'll probably come out that Cezer's backed out or something, and it's not going to happen. But fingers crossed. For the sake of the integrity of the show, I hope he does actually sign. But boys, quickly, what are your thoughts? As I'll go to you first, what are your thoughts on this Sezer signing?
Honestly, who else is there? We're struggling for options at the moment. We don't have any signed halves for next year. Obviously, Brooks is gone. We've got Adam, but he's going to be missing for half the season. So who else is there? There's not really anyone else available. Sezer has experience in the NRL. Apparently, he's done fairly well for himself over there in the UK. If he's going to improve our team, then I say, why not? Because honestly, we can't be too picky at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, people bagged out his age. He's 30. He's born in 91, so that would make him what?
33 next year.
Return 33 mid-season next year. Look, Daly Cherry Evans is. I've said this before. 33 for a back. Like, if the player's fairly healthy, yeah, I think it's fine. Ben Hunt's still going around. He's my age. He's 35. I think Daly Cherry Evans is 36, and
Adam
they're
Reynolds
going around.
as well would be in his 30s.
Adam Reynolds, I think, is 35 or 36 as well. So 33. People say I saw. I think it might have been one of your relatives. Might have been Andrew Bashara commented, "Does he come with a walking stick?" When we posted this the other day. I mean, come on, 32. He's not 37, 38. Like he's got we have 2 years left in him. I think he can do a job until hopefully we find a young talent coming through. But Rob, I think you're going to zig to mine and Aaron's zag here.
Oh, look, to be fair, and someone actually pointed it out to me on Twitter last week. Rob Bashara is not happy with any halves, and he's not happy with any coaches. He's probably right. The halves situation is really thin, which is why I think we were so stupid to let go of Hastings and Madden last year. Guys, he's been out of the NRL for 5 years, and he is 30-something. It's not like Hastings, who's a bit younger and was out of the NRL for ages. Like, this is a really huge risk. In terms of what he does for organising, yeah, that side of it's fine. he's not a good defender. The thing I remember the most about him actually is kicking a field goal against Cronulla to keep us alive in 2019, and we went on to beat St George at the SCG later that afternoon to set up a final round with Cronulla. I think that was the last time he'd played. So it's a big risk, 5 years out of the NRL. So I'm not a fan of it. I like what Anasta had to say about it tonight, though, when he compared this guy to Cogger. He kind of said, at least with Sezer, you're signing for 1 year, where with Cogger, you're probably committing yourself for 3 years, and then you've spent a bit of salary on someone when you're really looking for that gun halfback. So I accept that logic as well. Guys, we're just desperate, but we shouldn't be in this desperate position. We've screwed ourselves with who we let go in the off season, and further to that, even though we all knew Brooks kind of needed to move on, we should have offered Brooks more money as our stopgap to be there for another year or two. So everything that we've done has just been up to shit. And how we handle Brooks is not because of Marshall and Sheens. That's because of Fulton. Okay, because I know Marshall wanted him there next year. And if you want someone there next year, you don't offer him half the money that you offered Mitchell Moses, for half the length. So although Lee did say they revised the offer and he still knocked it back, but I think the damage was done by then. And again, it's how we handle our negotiations. Apparently, we came in with our offer late, then he came back with our thing late. So again, we can't nut a deal, whether it's just a basic contract or the heads of agreement meeting deal with Josh Addo-Carr. There's just always a fuck up in this club, guys. It's you forget about them and then you remember them suddenly. They just appear out of nowhere. So yeah, the halfback thing is a massive issue. I don't know. I really don't know what we're going to do, but I'm not a fan of Sezer, but I can understand why people would be. I don't think it's right or wrong. It's just not for me.
I saw Jay Benz. He's going to be on the show Wednesday night to preview the Tigers Dragons game. He helped preview the Tigers Dragons game, which West Tigers did actually win earlier in the year. So he did correct me. He said DC is 34, Hunt 33. So yeah, 88, 89, 90 babies. They're still older than Aidan Sezer. So Aidan Sezer is born in 91, I believe. But
they've been in the NRL constantly, guys.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying he's as good as them. I'm just I'm talking fitness wise.
He's playing in England, but he's playing in England as a job now, and he's effectively mentally retired from the NRL. I just don't think you can pick yourself back up and suddenly have your NRL hat on. I just think when you kind of give it up, you've given it up. Unless you've gone to England at a young age, or like we had Liam Fulton go there for a year and come back to us or something like that. I just don't see old guys. Someone can name someone in their 30s that's come back and succeeded from Super League. Please let us know, because I actually need some encouragement. I don't think I can think of anyone myself that's come back and been a success in the NRL.
Fair enough. Well, time will tell. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see it next year. Bit of good news after all the shit on the show tonight. Sean Bloor has told, I can't remember, I think this was the Sydney Morning Herald. It was in the back end of a story. I'm kind of annoyed that it wasn't his own story. Sean Bloor has said he spoke to Sheens and Benji when he saw the rumor of him not being wanted. And he said, they assured me my place was at the Tigers. That's all I needed to hear. So the reports are Sean Bloor still got a year in his contract. Give the guy a fucking extension, Lee and Justin, before you quit as well. But just for the love of God, sign this kid. We'll get to our game review in a second, but fuck me, he's in great form, and I'm loving that part of it. So, please sign my boy up, give him the bag. Righto, an hour and 10 minutes in. We'll talk about, actually, I probably should do the West Ashfield ad. Aaron, don't normally wait an hour and 10 minutes to do the ad, but we'll look, we've still got 120 people watching us live, which is pretty sensational. We love all our loyal listeners, and man, the fact that you listen to us talk about the club, that's just such a fucking shit show. But one place that is not a shit show is West Ashfield. So you can head there Thursday night to watch us, the West Tigers. Not us. We're not playing ourselves. The West Tigers will be playing against the Dragons. Check out Garden Bistro and walk on before the game and watch it on the big screen. And I'm sure, despite the form of the team, there'll be plenty of other West Tigers fans as well. The three of us might try and pop over there as well, just quietly. We'll talk about that off air, but maybe might go head to West Ashfield Thursday night to watch the game together. I haven't seen you boys physically for a while. It's need a bit of a catch up. But show your support.
Last time we played the Dragons, Josh.
Is that the last time we saw each other? That long?
The last
win.
No, Rob, you came to Campbelltown with Josh for the Raiders game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I beg your pardon.
that's right.
I beg your pardon.
I was going to say.
I saw Josh. I saw Josh at the Gold Coast game.
Okay.
Thanks. As show your support to the major sponsors of the West Tigers, Holman Barnes Group. For more information, visit holmanbarnesgroup.com.au. Holman Barnes Group, bringing people together. Righto. On to the game that did happen on Friday night. So 34-18 lost to the Newcastle Knights. Now, this obviously started with a try that was disallowed and called a knock-on, despite the referee awarding it, saying it was fine. I just realized I haven't uploaded the video yet. I'll do that while you boys are discussing it, though. But
I think Aaron wants to rip in about that, Josh, so I'll give Aaron the floor on that.
Go, Az.
So the first issue I had with that, so I had just sat down to watch the game. I had a bowl of ice cream, and I hear my dad. I hear my dad and my brother in the lounge room cheer when we cross the line. But I'm sitting there because I saw what happened, and like the potential of there being a possible knock on there. So I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate it because I'm like, they're gonna look at this. They're gonna go through this with a fine tooth comb and find a way to take it off us. And I was absolutely correct. But the big issue for me is, I think I said this a few weeks ago as well, but the idea of the bunker is to support or reject a decision that's made by the on-field official, but they can only reject the decision by the on-field official if there is 100% conclusive evidence to do so. You can't say with 100% certainty that ball was knocked on. The biggest argument I saw from people on Twitter was that Kalen Ponga was standing still. So with Kalen Ponga standing still, you can use that as sort of a barometer to see where the ball drops. And the ball was contacted in front of Ponga. So for the only way for it to be a knock on is for the ball to have landed behind Ponga because he still hadn't moved. And it didn't. It landed, I'd say, it would have gone basically almost directly to the left of him. But you can't say conclusively there was a knock on there because there was no, and the camera, I was watching Fox's footage, and they were showing us the bunker angles, and I assumed that bunker angles we were being shown on TV were the same ones the bunker official was using, which was Jared Sutton, by the way, who's got a bit of a habit of screwing us over just quietly.
Yeah.
But if it's the same angle, you could not tell from a bar of soap whether that ball was forward or backward. You could not tell. And because the on-field decision was try, you shouldn't be able to take that try off them by basically making an assumption, because that's what happened. They made a fucking assumption. They assumed the ball would have gone forward or would have floated forward or whatever, based on two fucking dodgy camera angles that they showed us. And I just think that's a load of bullshit. The team, you could clearly tell it disheartened the team. I know that it happens a lot, and it's a common thing for us. We get screwed over by a bunker nice and early in a game, and the heads drop, and all of a sudden we're out of the game. To the boys' credit, they came back into this one a little bit, but the damage had been done in those first four tries, or 3 or 4 tries the Knights scored before we got on the board properly. And I was furious. I posted about it on Twitter. I think you said you were about to play the audio, Josh, of what Annelsey said today, and what he said today has made me even angrier.
Yeah, I'm still uploading it. Rob, continue on about this game. It's taking a little while to upload.
Okay, look, I want to get to the pressing issue, Aaron. I want to cheer you up a little bit. Can you just tell me what flavour ice cream you were eating when that happened?
Cookies and cream.
Cookies and cream. Okay,
good choice.
Look,
good choice.
you're 100% right, mate. I think it went backwards, but let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that it went 90 degrees, which therefore would be a knock on because the ball has to go backwards. If it actually goes level, it's a knock on. Okay, just so everyone knows that. But whatever if that decision had been no try, and then they couldn't prove anything, then it stays no try. But the fact that it was awarded a try, you're 100% right. It's an absolute another dodgy call that we've got. We also got two dodgy calls, pretty much straight after that. We had Tyson Gamble offside from a grubber kick that went in the in goal that Buller got tackled in goal. We should have got a penalty for that. And then shortly after that, Coruscant was taken out from the lead runner, but he's deemed to have made it a bad defensive decision. These things will only seem to happen to us guys. I mean, I know Gold Coast have had a bit of a hard luck story the last couple of weeks from offsides, from goal line defence. But yeah, with us, we just get these all the time. And, someone had a go at me saying, oh, you're defending the team. They put on 3 or 4 quick tries. We should have more resilience than to let Newcastle, score back to back to back. And I get all that, but you can't tell me it doesn't make a difference. I mean, we're only down 18-12 at halftime. It could have made a difference. We might have scored from the kickoff again. It could have been 12-0. We don't know. So I think we're just over it. But the problem with us now is it just feels like we need everything to go our way, just to be competitive. And it's happening in the opposite. Like everything goes against us, and it's so. I mean, I lost my absolute shit the other night when that happened. Just not because it was us, but because how can you overturn something without proving it? I don't know if it has to be 100% proven, Aaron, but it has to be conclusive evidence to overturn it. And there was no conclusive evidence. There was no camera angle. So if there's no camera angle, tough shit. It's a try. End of story. Next to the post, 5 meters left of the post. 6-0. Like Wakeham's kicked 16 in a row, 18 in a row. I don't know
20.
how many he's kicked. Whatever, 20, even better. So that's an automatic 6 points. So and we get the ball back, and the guys have got a little bit of a spring in their step, but it still doesn't excuse some of the pathetic edge defense that we've got.
Sure.
But we got robbed of 6 points. That's the bottom line.
I say it all the time. It's a sliding doors moment. As you say, like 6 points in the lead to go, and obviously we're a team that can't. We need every single, as you said, we need every single point. We need things to go our way. But just to go from 6 in front to 6 behind, I don't care what and it's a 6. Well, we lost by 16. I don't care what you say. The whole momentum of the game changes if that. Will we definitely win if we get that try? Maybe not, but I don't think we lose by 16. We're definitely it's a whole different game if that try is
you get a pep in your step. You're feeling good about things. Like, wow, this is going to be our night. Blah blah blah. Yet the exact opposite happens. Oh, geez, here we go again. We've had a bad couple of weeks, and look at this. We've had this try taken off us, and then we concede 3 quick tries, really easily, and. That could have been all the difference. Like the game was 28-18 or thereabouts for so long. Like if it's 28-24, there's scoreboard pressure there. So we might have even had to lead at halftime. It just seems to happen to us. And I just, like I say, I get the shits and I'm over it like 5 minutes later. But I just feel sorry for the fans that are just, reading everything bad in the media, everything that's going on in the club. This is their one time to escape, feel good, and they get, 6 points taken off them. On an absolute rubbish decision. And I just don't, it's hard enough, as we keep saying, to accept poor decisions on the run. If they call a forward pass backwards or vice versa, we can't avoid that. Everyone's human. They make mistakes. But when they get reviews wrong, like seriously, man, it's death penalty stuff for me. I just can't accept it. You've got cameras there. You've got guidelines. You've got rules. Follow them. If they're followed, we're up 6-0 after 2 minutes.
Righto. Here's Graham Annelsey explaining it all.
Field in the bunker. instead it went forward. It's one of those 50-50 ones you were talking about earlier in the year where there's no concrete evidence, it's a bit hard to overturn. Did you have a view on that one?
Yeah, look, we did have a look at that this morning, and it's interesting if you, excuse me, if you listen to the host broadcaster of that game, there was arguments in the commentary box about whether it was or wasn't a knock-on. They couldn't agree between them. That's not a criticism
irrelevant
of them. I mean, that they're
Totally
paid to have opinions. But this is one of those ones where the cameras that were mostly dealing with this are on the halfway line or behind the play, behind the end of the field, and it's a judgment call by the bunker. If you ask me personally on that particular decision, I think it was probably a knockback, but I'm not saying that as a definitive answer to that decision, because I can't. Based on the vision and the position of cameras, it's a matter of conjecture and it's a matter of opinion, and in this case,
that is textbook fucking like benefit of the doubt. Like why the fuck is that not doesn't that stand with the ref? He basically he goes out and says that the camera angles and there wasn't like good enough angles and this is conjecture. Then why not leave it with the referee's decision on the fucking ground? For him to overturn it means that he thinks there was sufficient evidence. The bunker 100% has to think, as you said, Rob, that he's knocked it back. It's just wrong.
Why can't he answer that question like the boss of referees should? I don't give a fuck if he thinks it went backwards or forwards. It has nothing to do with it. His answer should be the cameras could not determine if the ball went forward or backwards. The bunker made a mistake. They should have gone with the on-field decision. That's what his answer has to be. Doesn't matter if he thinks it went backwards. He needs to say the bunker got it wrong. There was no conclusive evidence to overturn it. We fucked up. He's not going to say that word for word, but they fucked up, and he's fucked up in his answer to that question. Another cop out.
I wonder if Tim Sheen's said, and we didn't even. To be honest, I might just. I do.
He said he didn't want to hear sorry from Annelsey. That's what he said.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find. I think I do have the clip. From Sheen.
Just while you're finding that.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part was the fact that he used the phrase, "It's a matter of opinion." If it's a matter of opinion and it can be interpreted either way, then why the fuck did it not stay with the original call? The bunker combed it. I tried to count how many times that was replayed. I think it was replayed 8, 9, maybe 10 times, including the ones that Channel 9/Fox were showing during the broadcast before we got back to the referee on field to send it up to do the official send upstairs signal. And then we got another, 3, 4 replays there. So we got approximately 10 replays where they picked through it with a fine-tooth comb and just came up with this absolute bullshit way of taking the try away from us. This was the first set of the game. It changes the momentum of the entire game. We had a good run by, I forget who it was, on the 4th tackle. We then had another solid run on the 5th tackle before putting a kick up on the last. And Jareem, the absolute freak of nature that he is, gets down there, chases the ball, bats it back for Tommy Talau. That sets up the whole game for our team. But no, they found this absolute bogus bullshit way to take a try off us because it's all quote unquote opinion.
But we're repeating ourselves, but it can't be about opinion. If it's a 50-50, you go with the on-field decision. If that was ruled no try, guys, on the field, I can live with it. Even though I think it went backwards, I could live with it. But it was ruled a try. Okay. And if you're having your first day as the video review guy in the box and you have to look up, what do I do if I'm not sure? or I don't have evidence to overturn it, I go with the on-field decision.
Ref's call.
It's an absolute. It's not a 50-50, guys. It's 100% the wrong decision by the way the laws are written of the game. Okay, That's a complete fuck up. It's not a 50-50. I don't give a fuck if it went 1 degree forward or 1 degree backwards. By the rules, the way they're written, it's a try. Okay, 6-0 Tigers, Newcastle to kick off.
Here's Sheen's talking about it.
Looked like a try to me. But anyway, and then we were 18-0 in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So we fought back, but we're chasing our tail the whole game. But I'll be interested to see if it looked like a try to me. And if I get another apology from the referees, I won't be happy.
Has that happened all too often?
Yeah, it is. So, anyway, we'll wait and see.
Turns out he didn't apologise. He just said, I thought it was a try, but the bunker...
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, too bad. The bunker thought it was all right. Few statistics from this game. Anything that stands out for you as completion rate, 24 or 38, just not good enough. Possession, 55% to the Knights. Again, I mean, the momentum of that call, you never know how that possession swings because you score a try, you get the ball back, like it just changes everything. But anything that stands out there. I mean, you have to say the Knights, despite that call, the Knights did go on to dominate that game pretty much.
They did, and it was only because of one player basically that kept us close. And Sheen's mentioned it in the press conference too, which I thought, to be honest, was probably not the best thing to say because you're kind of throwing the rest of your team under the bus while putting one player up on a pedestal. But our defense overall was pretty poor. Like, look at the line break count: 10 for the Knights, 3 for us. They were all over us. Maybe they wouldn't have been if that try went through because, like I said, changes the whole context of the game. There's another 77 and a half or 78 minutes or whatever after that try that where everything could be different. The entire game, the entire context of the game could be different. But it was just the kind of the catalyst for the team to drop their heads. And I was hopeful this year that wouldn't happen as much, especially with some of the new signings we've made. Like, obviously, our captain, Appy, was back for this game. John Bateman was the replacement captain while Appy was out. And I would have thought with having some of those guys as leaders around the club and Clemmer as well, they wouldn't drop their heads after a bad call goes against them like they have so many times this year and last year. I just thought things would be a bit different this year. But it's happened so many times, I honestly can't blame the players too much. Like, if I think that's the 5th time this year at rough count that Annelsey's had a Tigers play in his weekly briefing where he's basically said whoever was in charge got it wrong, or didn't say specifically they got it wrong, but it was implied that they got it wrong. It's happening too often. Something's got to change because it's happening too often. Our defense was just poor. We picked things up a little bit late in the first half, early in the second half. But then the sin bin period where the Knights were down a man, we were awful. We were god effing awful in that sin bin period. Why we were just doing hit ups, I don't know. The whole game, it was an absolute shit show from start to finish.
Yeah, Sheen's actually mentions that in his press conference after the game as well. So he basically said there's no game plan, Rob, but isn't that kind of on him? Or is he kind of, are the players not listening to Sheen's?
I'd like to know what the game plan was. I thought Will Smith was pretty non-existent. I didn't see too much wrong from Wakeham. I need someone to point that out to me. Maybe I'm not as smart as them. I just thought the edge defence was absolutely piss poor. Poor Capoa, I mean, he's a second rower. He shouldn't even be on the wing. But as we said last week, plays, left side, right side, second rower, centre, winger. Tupu, I beg your pardon, was just as bad on the other wing. His form's absolutely dropped off the last month or so. We keep talking about, we're going to get Aidan, Sezer or Cogger or, be nice to have Mitch Moses. I mean, these blokes aren't going to fix our edge defence. We need some outside backs. And as I said last week, I think Tom Talau's the only bloke that was in our starting backline at the start of the year. So that backline has totally changed. It's effectively a New South Wales backline at the start of the year. And it doesn't matter how good your forwards are. If you've got backs that can't tackle, Kalen Ponga absolutely tore us apart. I didn't think Jackson Hastings did much.
He was quiet.
He was quiet, but he steered the ship around. You look at their tries; he still dug into the line a couple of times, before passing to Ponga, et cetera, et cetera. But some of their, there was one try to their prop forward. I think it was Saifidi, might have been their fourth try near the post. That was really disappointing, just to have a hit up off the ruck. But as I said earlier, and as Aaron said, the Coruscant, getting taken out and offsides from grubber kicks, and we can go back to other games. There's probably a dozen things. Joe Offengawi scoring a try against the Cowboys, and everyone knew it was a try except the video ref. I mean, even though we won that night, we just get all these decisions all the time. It's just you just start wondering if gambling's having a big influence on these decisions. Because we saw last week with Katoa's last try when Buller got to the ball. I mean, that try there is the difference between Cronulla covering the line and the Tigers, holding the line. So you just start wondering how much money is, and gambling is affecting some of these decisions, because there's just too many of them, as Tim Sheen said, that, make you wonder what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, but the bookies win either way. But when it comes to lines, that's why you don't get 2-1. Either way, they might be holding a little bit more money, but as I've said in the past, different bookies are holding a different amount of monies for different teams. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the line's not going to change, Josh. I mean, with some it will. Don't get me wrong, but if the line 22.5, someone's taken one and someone's taken the other. It's not always going to be a 50-50 split. There's obviously better results.
But for who? But for Tab, for Sportsbet, like who?
Who knows, mate?
Who specifically? Who knows? They're all holding different amounts of money.
Could be for private individuals, mate. Who knows? Seriously, you don't know.
Top tacklers, funny enough, Brendan Wakem was tied third with 31. 4 missed. Johnny Bateman 46 with 3. 33 for Appy. Appy missed 8 tackles, so one of you was a bit apprehensive with his jaw or something, but that's very high for Appy. Other leaders in stats, tackle breaks. Jareem Buller had 8, which is, I think the next highest was 1. I don't think anyone else had 2, but run meters, Clem 162, post contact meters, Johnny Bateman 53, and just 1 line break each from Kapoa, Jareem Buller, and Isaiah Papali.
Honourable mention for the tackle count there as well, Josh. Your guy Sean Bloor, 29 tackles, none missed. Once he came on, he really shored up the defence in his part of the field. So he was brilliant.
He's like an Alex Twal, but with an offload and skill. Right over the table, so not as much point looking at it. But the Dragons, I don't think the bye was taken into consideration. So before and against wise, we're 68 behind now. So a 34-point win would be good Thursday night. And Rob's dog agrees with me there, I think.
Sorry, guys.
Onto our friends at Mobile Corp. So Mobile Corp, they support local businesses by managing their IT, their networks, and their mobile devices. If you're a local business owner looking for a partner who will take away the hassle of dealing with IT issues, make sure you have cybersecurity in place, handle all your mobile device needs, then Mobile Corp can help. Mobile Corp is a family-run business and a long-time supporter of the West Tigers. Reach out to Stephen and the team at Mobile Corp. Check out mobilecorp.com.au. That's mobilecorp.com.au. Lower grades, the Maggies, they got smacked in New South Wales Cup 46-10 ahead of the main game on Friday up in Newcastle. Table-wise, they're down in 10th, so kind of falling out of contention there for a final spot as well. In Jersey Flegg, they got done at Lickham Oval on Sunday, 18 points to 8 to the Raiders. So 0 of 3 So hopefully the girls can start putting some wins on the board for us next week. So Jersey Flag, they're in third last as well, in 10th. So they're starting to fall away. It's just not a good year for the whole club. Apart from the Magpies obviously won in the SG Ball. Harrow Mats, I keep forgetting, but at least maybe next year the kids coming through will start to bring some success. So player ratings for this week. So Jerome Buller 9.5, which is insane in a game in a team that lost by 16. This kid is just so good, and just fuck me dead if he's not. I know they've only just signed him to a couple of years, but they got to pay him more and just lock him in for 5. Like it's just he's a hell of a talent, guys.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things this club has to do, Josh, and in this order. The first thing is everyone from coaches and management, they have to be on board with each other. They have to be on the same page. They have to be unified. They have to sort this power play that's going on at the club out and just do what's at the best interest for the club. And I go further than what you said, mate. I said it on Twitter. We need to do a daily Cherry Evans type contract for Dream Buller. We need to give him like a 9 or a 10-year deal. Make it just show the rest of the NRL, show your supporters that we're going to build this club around this unbelievably good talent and just lock him up for as long as we can. So that's what they should be doing. And, whether they do it or not, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, if we don't act quickly, another mob's going to get in there because he's just too talented, not for the whole league to see what he's doing.
100%. Poor old Kepaoa, 1 point. So our outside backs as not having a great run. As Rob said earlier, poor Kepaoa, he's not a winger.
He's not anything.
Beside the fullback, those other outside back scores are pretty dismal. I feel bad for AJ. If anything, he's a bench second rower. Can add a little bit of punch mid to late in the game. If he gets a stint there, but yeah, he's definitely not a winger. He was well and truly out of his depth on the wing on Friday night, and it showed. I
got criticised for saying Junior Tupou maybe should have a stint in New South Wales Cup. I just feel like he has to be playing hurt or something.
Something's wrong there.
Well, yeah, he's just
Confidence
not himself.
Down.
Confidence, yeah, or something. Yeah, I hope Junior, and that's not to say I don't think Junior's a talent. I think he is. It's just he's I don't know, something's going to happen for him to snap back and show his talent, but maybe it is. Will Smith 3.3, Brandon Wakeham 4.4. So Rob, you reckon 4.4 will be a bit low for Wakeham there?
Yeah, I think as a fan base, the first person we point the finger at's a halfback. As I said, Wakeham's got the try assist to Buller's first try, which by the way, the way Buller just beat 3 or 4 players there to get to that right corner post was incredible. And also, Wakeham has admittedly it was a fluky kick, but he's got the try assist for the second try. And then you imagine being Brandon Wakeham and having Tom Talau, Kepaoa, and out of form Tupou, like some of these guys. I mean, he doesn't have, Will Smith. I mean, he doesn't have much outside him. Like, so I just think, cut him a little bit of slack. Given who he's got in the back line, I think he hasn't been, bad. And I actually think he's a decent option for a number 7 if we can get a number 6 next year. I know he's as slow as a wet week. He's got no pace, but everything else, he seems to be really trying hard. I think his kicking game has been okay. His defense has been great, as we saw there. I don't know what else everyone wants from him. I mean, yeah, he's not Mitch Moses, but there's not much out there. And given he didn't have a full preseason, given he's been chucked in after, in round 3 as a reserve, I think he's done pretty well, all things considered.
On to the forwards, Stefano 6.5, Api Coruscant 7.6, David Clemmer 6.6. A bit of a meh kind of score from our front rows, as that's kind of about where they're at.
Yeah, they.
I thought
I mean,
I thought Steph was pretty good. I think 6.5 might be a little bit rough on Steph. I thought he had a few good runs.
Our middle defense was pretty solid. They scored only one of their tries up the middle, and that was the one where if we scored the same try in the exact same way, it gets taken off us for obstruction.
Correct.
That was the only try they scored through the middle. So as usual, our forwards were doing the job defensively. I don't think they got completely run over or run through by the Knights forwards or even by the Knights backs. I think a lot of the work the Knights were doing came off the back of Kalen Ponga going around our edges, and that was what killed us. So I think I'd honestly say potentially unders for both of the front rowers. Appy, even though he missed a lot of tackles, he's all heart, all effort. I commend him for coming back. We all thought that it was probably a bit too early considering the injury, but he looked to be his normal, not quite his normal self, but pretty close to it. And I'll just backtrack to Brenden Wakeham for a moment here. One thing we've been crying out for at our club is a player who can kick goals, and his streak now of 20 consecutive goals. I don't know if we've ever had a streak that high, except maybe Pat Richards could have kicked potentially that many consecutive goals. But I'd honestly give him a couple of extra points there for being a good goal kicker, because we've been crying out for one of those for so bloody long. We've finally got one.
Isaiah Publi 7.3, Johnny Bateman 6.7. Papa, he's starting to show a bit of Parramatta Papa as well as we go along. Young Pole 4.8. He's not in great form at the moment. Anything to add on our back row three?
Oh, it's good to see Papa Lee, be that player that we're hoping to be. That try he set up for Buller, he actually receives the ball from Buller, palms off one guy, and then you can see while he's sort of getting tackled in that initial contact, he switches hands, and like puts the ball in the other hand into his left hand so he can offload it to Buller. He basically did that out of nothing. There was nothing on. Like Buller's just giving him the ball and said, "Do your thing," and then he sets up Buller. So, but again, what a night Buller's had. 2 tries, and then the try holding up Marju, and then getting in Dominic Young's way to cause another no try there. He's just always putting his body on the line, guys. It's an absolute pleasure to watch.
The bench, Jakey Simpkin 4.7. My guy is Sean Blaw 7.4, so he was third highest for this game. Alex 12 5.2. Alex Safar 5.7. But yeah, Sean Blaw. I can't tell you technically why, but as soon as Sean Blaw came on, I don't know, the team, maybe there was the movement in my pants, but it just seemed like the momentum of the team just up, the intensity of the West Tigers upped when Sean Blaw came on the field. Am I crazy?
Not at all. I think he's got some confidence now. Like subconsciously he had to be worried about his leg, like given the long layoff he had, and he's getting a number of games under his belt, and he's had a couple of good performances, and he's starting to, create an offload here and there. And both him and Seyfarth were outstanding against Cronulla. So I think he's just come in and he's had a bit of confidence. That's all. And it's good to see. It's the Sean Blaw we want to see. And I'll be honest, I expect more out of him too. So, I think the sky's the limit for him.
Absolutely. Righto, moving on. Anyone else as you want to touch on before we move on?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We just all know that if Sean Blaw does end up signing an extension, the first person in his DMs is going to be you, Josh. So we wouldn't begrudge you that at all.
Shoot him a text. Mate, I got his phone number. I'll shoot him a text. And a few X's and O's at the end of it. Some of your best comments from the player 10 to 1 rating poll. So yeah, keep an eye out after the game on Twitter and Facebook to take part in this. So Adam said, brave effort, but like Rob says, I'm sick of saying that. I want the 2 points. Boyd said, why isn't Dream already signed on a healthy long-term deal? Clearly the kid can play. Blaw really strong again in the middle. Hopefully we can extend him as well. Unfortunately for us, we won't be winning many games with these reserve grade halves. How is Kepa still getting a game? Love the show, fellas. Chris W says, cannot be happy conceding 7 tries, just not my DNA. Cannot defend an error or penalty to save our life. Defense is attitude, and it's just not good enough. Clone Buller and his attitude. Replace the other 16 fellas, and we will be right. He said, I worry with these performances a few things. One, paying overs percentage continues to rise. Each bad performance, maybe 20% more to come to us currently. The youngsters might not be keen to hang around. The ones we want to keep might not get over this 5-year plan. And I wonder if the plan might need to be rigged moving forward. If we have the same or near similar team next year, will be a spoon year again.
I disagree with that last part.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think the squad's, you got to remember the injuries in the moment. No, like we got, still got no Adam, no Brooksy. That's our 6 and 7. If
and then no Brooksy at all next year. So like the 7's going to be a completely different player from the 7 at the start of this year, no matter what.
TBA, but they do need to. In saying that, they do need to make a few. So they got the cash, so fucking.
They need to work out how to score points in the red zone. That's just been the main issue all year.
Yeah, and I think a bit of a couple of backs signed up. I don't think we're a wooden spoon team next year, but I said that this year. Josiah said, where do we even go from here? Fans cancelling memberships. Youth want nothing to do with us. Any good young players will be stupid not to move on ASAP. Players getting in a rut where nothing will mentally get them up. All the while, the likes of Lee and Pascoe pat themselves on the back. Absolute insanity. New halves aren't even half the problem now. Unfortunately, even if you put Cleary and whoever's into our system, we would be the same results. You're nodding your head along to that one, Rob?
Well, mate, I mean, is he going to stop those tries on the left edge or the right edge? Like, we need outside backs as well as a halfback. It's not just one. Yeah, like, certainly we need that steering. We need the halfback's number one priority. But if we've got the same, number 2, 3, 4, and 5 next year, we're fucked. So, yeah, we do need outside backs. And how do we attract them when we're fighting with each other, with our player recruitment and our coaches? It's just... that's the frustrating part for me. Like what Hosea was saying earlier, how's it going to change? I'll tell you how it changes. We need the NRL to step in and threaten these goons with deregistering our license, and then you'll get some change. Okay. But how do we get the NRL to get involved is another question. But that's the way you got to do it. You got to threaten them with some sort of action, whether it's legal action or the NRL stepping in, not signatures on a petition.
Tim Colgate said after that first set and try in brackets, fuck off, it was batted forward. I was super disappointed with the performance. Typical Tigers. Once we have something go against us, we turn to water. Then I start feeling optimistic. When we score some tries, then we just can't hold on. At the end of the day, if any other team had their second and third choice spine, they would be in the same position. Forever a Tiger. Keep up the good work, boys. The fish rots from their head. Enough said. Ben Angus said, ref conspiracy aside, it was woeful watching again. Wingers defending in the infield, allowing simple cutouts for tries, not bending back forwards. In the opening sets, zero creativity in the halves, taking Appy off when Knights were down to 12. That's a good point. Yeah, Appy coming off during the sin bin. Yeah, I guess it was as part of the plan. Buller is a superstar and who will not stay at this rabble. Blore was amazing. Be worth a start soon. And then Dominic Riordan, he said, the team is so fragile mentally. The early disallowed try seemed to deflate them. The edge defense was diabolical. Capole is not a winger. Toa, well, the ceiling is high, but the floor is very low. Tupou needs a spell. That chase for the gamble try was poor. Definitely, the effort was, he just gave up on that one. The forwards tried hard. Stefano's second spell was good. Great to see Papa Lee get a bit of early ball. Buller was phenomenal. Phenomenal, thank you. And Appy was great. Alas, we look unlikely winning another game. It's truly disgraceful that this team could end up with fewer wins than the 2022 Tigers. And that does it. Thank you, everyone, to take part in that. And patreon.com/WestsLife. If you like to support and take part in the show, they're not taking part in this show because we are nearly, as Gussie said, he loves a long episode. I think Shane did send me his rant. I just haven't copied and pasted it yet. But we'll do your questions on Wednesday's show as well. So Shane's rant here. Another week, another drama. When will it end? Sheen's being left out of today's crisis meeting. I see as a positive, as he must be on the outer. The sooner he's gone, the better. My question, is Benji the answer? What do you guys think? I don't think he is. Benji must have had some input coaching this year, and we're last. This isn't entirely his fault. As he is still learning, I just don't think we can afford rolling the dice again. And then Friday night, Kapoa, what the F? From Shane. Anything to add to that, boys?
Look, with the Benji one, it's a really tough one because we're pretty much known he's been the coach all year. So, you know, the losses are on him. The losses are on him and Sheens, but the losses are on him. So, yeah, I just think he's in an unfair position. It's his first year. He shouldn't have even been given the job, given he's had no experience anywhere else. But, you know, the question is, will he be a good coach? And I think the answer is yes. We've started this journey with him. We've got to leave it there now. But, you know, we've certainly made some, you know, diabolical decisions, like the fact that we got rid of Hastings, the fact that we got rid of Joe Offaringawi. You know, Braithen Assa spoke tonight about, you know, what sort of DNA, what sort of player do we want at the club? And, you know, Joe Offaringawi is one of those guys you want on the field every week. You know, he's going to give it his all. He gave it his all last year in a team that came freaking last. He was the best player in that team, and it's very hard to get motivated when you're in a shit team. So he's obviously got self-motivation. He loves the club, and we got rid of him. So that just shows that, you know, we don't even know how to keep the right people. We get rid of the wrong people. It's just a fucking shit show. Absolute shit show.
I don't think this episode was a shit show. I think Peter on Facebook.
Everything's a shit show. Everything's a shit show.
Not this. This isn't a shit show. So please join us again on Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. as we preview the shit show versus the Dragons. The game's obviously Thursday night. So, yeah, join us live the night before. On this one, I believe, as I said earlier, Jay Benz, who joined us for the Dragons preview earlier in the year, will he be wearing sunglasses indoors on camera again? I don't know. Probably he's a bit of a loose unit, but hopefully we can have a bit of fun in that one, a bit more, lightheartedness to the bit of funniness to the show he can bring. So anything else, boys? Nearly 2 hours strong this one. I'm exhausted, but I hope hope everyone enjoyed this episode. And we literally had, I think, well over 100 people simultaneously watching us. So as I said earlier, love you guys and thank you for contributing to the show, joining us live. We love, as much as we hate this team at the moment, we actually do love doing this. So anything else, boys, before we say goodnight to Big Dog?
No, all good. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your week. I think we'll beat St. George, depending on who we pick. But, yeah, we'll see how we go.
Carla said, go Daniel Ricciardo. He's back. I don't know if you boys have heard. He's back in Formula One this weekend, racing for AlphaTauri, the Red Bulls' second team. So,
can he play on the wing?
Can he play on the wing? Probably.
Okay, we'll pick him tomorrow night.
He'd probably have to put a bit of weight on, though. He's very skinny, being an F1 driver.
Fair enough.
Right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As always, despite it being an absolute shit show and the absolute Muppets running the show, go the Tigers.
Go the Tigers.
Go the Tigers.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the WestsLife Podcast. Please follow us at WestsLife Pod on Instagram and Twitter and facebook.com/WestsLife Pod. You can also support and take part in the show at patreon.com/WestsLife and give us a subscribe on YouTube and turn notifications on. We'll see you again next time on another episode of the WestsLife Podcast.